I might. You might remind. Hey, I think we're live, Damon. So, hey, happy Monday, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kurt, and ready to go.
Man, we have a phenomenal, incredible guest today. Are you, dude, are you ready for this one?
Ready to go.
Let's rock
Damon,
and roll. So, hey, let's dive in. We have our dear friend, the one, the only tea manufacturer in the great state of Alaska. We have Megan Weston. Megan, you are did I have that introduction right? Do I have that right?
the only tea manufacturer in Alaska? No, I'm
Oh,
not the only one. No,
you're
we've
the
got
only
some
one
great.
that matters. How's that?
No, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. I am the only one making like kind of the final stage of my product, like the machinery that I have. But no, we have a really cool tea environment in Alaska. It's very
Well,
small but very cool.
in mine and
Nice.
Damon's book, you're all right. So anyway, Megan Weston, Felicity Loft Tea, happy Monday. How are you today? How are
I'm
things?
good. I'm good. I got a cup of tea, just ready to go, ready to chat with you guys. It's always good to see you, Kurt. And it's my first time meeting Damon, so
Well, I'll tell you, this is an honor and privilege. You and I have been together in person a couple years ago. Came up to visit great state of Alaska. We have a mutual relationship with our dear friends at the Alaska MEP, and I'll tell you, you are just a fierce entrepreneur. So I have a bunch of wonderful questions that people are just burning with curiosity to hear from you, Megan. So Damon, let's go here first. Okay. First question for you, my friend Megan Weston. When you were a little girl growing up,
oh god.
when you were a little girl growing up, who was your hero? Who did you look up to? Who did you admire? Who was your hero when you were a little girl growing up?
That's a great question. Honestly, like a lot of the times it was my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, I always just always liked the way that he handled himself and his work ethic and willingness to like get in the weeds of things. And so that's always been a big one for me. Um, but yeah, I'd say my dad was the most consistent over my life, and he's not even watching this right now.
Oh, he's not even white man. You're throwing dad shout
Yeah,
out and lots of love. He's not.
I'll send him the YouTube link later.
We'll send him the replay. So,
Yeah.
and what's dad's name, please?
Jay.
Jay. Well, hey, big shout out to Jay.
Nice.
And what an inspiration he is. And so Damon and I are girl dads. We love that's one of our favorite answers. So just how Jay came in and just inspired this wonderful entrepreneur. So Megan, let's dive in because you have a great story we'd like to dig into here. Share a little bit on when you kind of kicked off your career. What were your aspirations? What did you think you were going to do? Because we want to dive into how you got this tea business off the ground. But when you were, maybe fresh out of school, what were you thinking as far as career wise?
So fresh out of school, econ degree out of Missouri S&T, and graduated with an econ degree in 2008.
Nice.
Which was not a great time.
That was a wonderful year to not graduate from college.
It was a wonderful year to not graduate from college. Went to worked for like 8 months, got in a layoff like everybody else. Right. And kind of random series of following other humans that I knew and, being free in my early 20s. I ended up, I had always worked in food service throughout college, but ended up on Martha's Vineyard and managing a restaurant there. And that's kind of just like food sucked me back in. I was doing network analytics and in a cubicle and all of the classic things, and I hated it. And so I went back to food and have pretty much stayed there since. So various different paths to tea, but for the most part, my life, my career has been spent in food service of one kind or another. And so moved back up to Alaska, ended up owning a restaurant here. And in the process, kind of behind the scenes of, my food life, I've never been a coffee drinker. And I know that like for most people, that's like, what? But coffee never resonated with me. And I wanted to love tea. but didn't actually. And then I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with people who love tea and make it well. And from then I realized that like it wasn't that I didn't like tea, it's that I had been drinking terrible tea. And it had been made improperly, and that's why I didn't enjoy it. And so yeah, my food journey and my tea journey are kind of very similar. They happened about the same time and kind of overlapped. And so yeah, in 2020, like everybody else, I realized a lot of things about my life and the food service business and whatnot. And so I finally launched into Felicity. Kind of wanted to take these skills and understanding of the restaurant world and these relationships that I had built over time in my community with farmers and my love for this state and kind of the passion for like the things that we have to do here in Alaska to function that is very different than necessarily everyone who lives in the contiguous US. And so just kind of merged those things together. And then I thought, in a few years, I'll start blending tea. I have a lot to learn. And turns out it was a lot like cooking. In the way of like that recipe development, sourcing, all of that. Like there was just, it was a very easy shift for me. Still a lot to learn, which is the great thing about food in general and anything we consume is there's just always a lot to learn. But yeah, it was a really, it made a lot of sense in a lot of areas of my life. There was not a point in which I was like, all right, I need a career change. This is the direction, I'm going to go. It was a very fluid, like, here's a thing that I love. Here's a thing that's missing in the market. Here's a way that I know that the market in Alaska can use this product. And I think it will resonate with some people. And it was very much a transition. I started the company, thought I would have 3 or 4 years before I transitioned. And then it was like, oh, this is going really well. And also then the right opportunity came up to sell my restaurant. And so, years later, here I am.
Here you are. Okay.
Yeah.
So much to uncover there.
A lot there.
There's a lot to cover. So let's give a couple of shout outs. Hey, we got Shub here today. Hello, Kurt, Damon,
Shub.
Megan. How are you? We got Deo here today. Keep going. So happy Monday, you guys. Drop us a note. Let us know as you're out there. We strongly encourage you, welcome you to connect with Megan. She's absolutely just incredible, just a fierce entrepreneur, founder, CEO extraordinaire of Felicity Loft Tea. How do you like that? You're CEO, right? Is that your title?
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive in. Okay. I'd love to hear. So entrepreneur, food service, restaurant, and you said it was kind of transition. I'd love for you to go back in 2020. So now, little disruption for about 7 billion people or so, right? Damon, was there something like that?
A little bit.
Give or take a few billion, right?
Yeah.
Megan, when you decide to launch Felicity Loft Tea Company, were you just convicted this is the right thing to do, nervous, excited, scared, like, what's going to happen in my restaurant business? Like what was that process?
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody that was in food service in 2020 was pretty unsure about life. Yeah. And we were definitely, this idea had been marinating before like COVID shutdowns and whatnot. But for some context, I also had when the world shut down, I had a baby. I had a 10-month-old. And so I had really set things up, I thought, really well for transitioning into going back to work full time, but still having this little one that I was responsible for, and like my priorities having shifted massively. And then those things didn't work out. I went back to work 100 hours a week. And I was lucky enough to have a partner who could like be at home with our kid. But like you didn't have a choice. As soon as we opened back up, like there was just the intensity of things was so chaotic, and it was day to day. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know what was going to happen. It was very scary. You know, and at this point, this is like my life's work is Odie's, this restaurant. And in the background, I had been kind of slowly but surely kind of collecting these ideas. You know, I had said for years, like, if whatever I do next is going to be shelf stable, that's like whatever I do next is going to be shelf stable, you know, not having to deal with refrigeration, like these kinds of things, these kind of almost jokes that you tell to yourself or your coworkers or your business partners over the course of time. Those little like nuggets of truth that kind of come to you over the course of business. Those were the things that guided my direction into tea. It was like, oh, this is shelf stable. Oh, this can use a local product. Oh, if I do the packaging correctly, this won't be terribly expensive to ship. All of these bits and pieces of experience that I had kind of led to what I wanted to do here. And COVID was, you know, that time period in life for everybody, I feel like was pretty transformational in the adjustment of priorities and the adjustment of just what we felt like we wanted out of life. And for me, having come off of maternity leave and directly into that, I think it was even more so. Like, it was like, no, things have to change and they have to change soon. And so, yeah, it was big. It was hard. You know, it was, especially with a restaurant, you know, that was like very daily operations. It changed the way that I thought about the structure of my life as well, you know, because I'd been in that business for long enough. It felt like this is the norm. And then to have all of those disruptions at one time, it changes what you think is normal, and what you can perceive as a normal way to do business. And I think that is good. It's good to have those disruptions in your life and have to step back and be like, okay, what can I do different? What I want to do different? And how does it meet with the priorities that I have for my life as a whole, not just my career?
Okay, Damon, ready for this? Okay,
Let's go.
Checked a lot of boxes. I love what you're saying there, Megan. So again, friends out there that are, you know, they might be, hey, I want to launch my own business. I want to start my entrepreneurial journey. You know, I love what you're saying here. A lot, 2020, COVID, new baby, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. I have this business, I have this restaurant, 100 hours, lots of components here. Damon, thoughts, takeaways immediately. What's going through your mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, like you said, you can see the transition now because of what you went through with your restaurant and that, because it really, COVID threw restaurants in such turmoil, and you didn't know what was going to happen for a long time, day to day, you didn't know what was going to happen. And I love your thing about it needs to be shelf stable, because the one thing I never thought about is if I've got a restaurant and we want to have fresh food and I don't know if I'm going to be open or not, how the heck did you ever do that?
It was rough.
Yeah. And then especially if you're in Alaska and you're trying to get all of your fresh food comes from someplace else. I mean, there's just so many challenges in that. But yeah, the one thing though, and I see the restaurant, people that are restaurateurs, people that are in the restaurant industry, just grow to know that you're going to be in that thing every hour it's open.
Yes.
And I've got to believe that you moving into the tea business, while there are demands and other things, it's not necessarily the same in your timing. And that probably worked out well with you having a baby.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of things that changed during that time period that you can look back into hindsight and see like this was all happening for a reason, and here's all the good things that come out of it. But when you're in it, it's miserable. Like that is entrepreneurship in a bubble, right? Like you're like, that was so great, but actually that was the worst time of my life. And
it sucks to get to the great part.
I mean, that is what we do when you're starting a business, almost always. Like it's any kind of startup, but also just like growth phases, because like entrepreneurs, people think like, oh, the beginning is hard. And like, yeah, the beginning is hard, but anytime you're moving into a growth phase is hard. Like when you're in the weeds of growing, especially if it wasn't a very focused, like, okay, this
Yeah.
is the choice that we're making to grow in this specific way. And we put all of our systems in place ahead of time to make sure that we can meet those demands. Like, even then there's pains, but like when
Yeah.
you're not prepared for it, when it's just like, just slaps you in the face like a fish, like it is just, it's a monster.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, Damon, I don't know if we've ever had that phrase on the show, slaps you in the face like a fish. And I got such a visual, you know, like,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm assuming I was probably the target, right, Damon? You know, like,
Yeah.
Anyway, Megan, great. Damon, what were you going to say?
Well, that's so funny because I was in catch can last week and I saw the fish running and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, getting slapped in the face of the fish. So
Yeah.
how bad that would be.
Just slimy, it smells bad.
Stinky this
like,
time of year.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
what growth phase is.
It's right. And so and what I love about what you've done here is, you know, transition, you know, Damon's almost like that contract manufacturer, because, you know, when you're a restaurant owner, it's like you're constantly making something for somebody else, right?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, you know, Megan, what I love what you did is you're like, you know, hey, I want a proprietary product of my own. And so you chose tea, you know, and you said check a lot of boxes, shelf life,
Yeah.
you're passionate about it, your experience,
Yep.
Martha's Vineyard, so on and so forth. So let's go here. Our mutual connection, our relationship is built through our dear friends, the wonderful human beings at the Alaska MEP.
Woo-hoo.
Can you share, first off, I'd love to know if you can go back in time, do you know, recall, remember what inspired you to reach out to the Alaska MEP? And can you just share your working experience with our friends, Alyssa, Sammy Jo, Peyton? Just share what has been your experience with the MEP.
Yeah. So I heard Alyssa speak in, God, it was probably like 2015, might have been 14, 15, something like that. She was working as the state economist for Alaska. And she came and did the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District does a big kind of like State of the Union every year. And it's this big conference. And I heard Alyssa speak, and you know, the things that she was saying resonated with me, who she was resonated with me. And I was just like, I will follow her. I don't know what she's up to, but I want to know what she's doing. In that way where you just like see somebody, you hear someone speak and you're like, yes, that person gets it. And so I kind of followed along with what Alyssa was up to through Made in Alaska. She was working with these different programs. And then she, I believe, reached out to me because we had met doing some Made in Alaska stuff. And then she reached out to me and was like, hi, I'm doing this thing. We just started this thing. It's called MEP. And we had recently bought Lucy's. We were like looking for a new building. And so we like, you know, sometimes it can take a little bit to understand what MEP does and where their resources are really valuable. And I was one of those people that like didn't get it in the beginning. And I was like, can you just give me grant money? And so, yeah, like being able to talk to Alyssa and kind of reconnect with her in that way. When we sold the restaurants, there wasn't really a space that they made sense in my life at that time in my career. But then when you guys hosted down here a manufacturing conference, was right after I had sold the restaurant, and I knew that I wanted to install some equipment. And I needed those really specialized equipment that I didn't really know much about. And that's where MEP really pulled through for me, is that I knew in my mind that I needed to create a specific format of my product for customer use. And I had no idea where to begin, because you can like Google these things, but also, you know, the algorithm is so specific and hyper focused towards, you know, like retail commerce sales, that on the wholesale side, it can be like incredibly daunting. And so, you know, Alyssa had stayed in touch with me, Sammy Jo had stayed in touch with me, but then when it came time for me to get this equipment, you know, I had a conversation with Alyssa and I was like, this is what I need. And I don't know where to find it. Like, I know this exists and I have no idea. I can't find it anywhere. And I was new enough in the tea business that I didn't have a lot of contacts. And there's a lot of like proprietary info, depending on who you're talking to in the industry. And I just didn't feel like I had the resources. And I was reached out and I was like, this is, she was like, I don't know anything about this, but let's dig in. And that has always been, I think, my favorite thing about Alyssa and the MEP crew is that I can call and I can say, like, I don't know anything about this. And they're like, oh, me either. Let's go. And they have so many resources and people that they can reach out to say, like, okay, we don't know anything about this, but we want to know everything about it. And they know somebody that knows, they know somebody that can find that information for you. And that's always been, I think, one of my favorite things about MEP is that, like, I can call with almost any question. And for me personally, like, what we ended up doing was they helped me find a specialist who specifically works on installing tea manufacturing equipment. And they helped me find a specialist that did a ton of research for me. And then I was able to get compiled information without me spending, 40, 60 hours on these conversations and communications and whatever, with all these quotes, with a recommendation based on, the very specific specifications that I had, my budget, and the constraints of the size of my building, very hyper specific. And that is incredible. It was great. And I would have never known where to find this human otherwise.
So let's dive into that. So my recollection when you and I spoke about this, so with the Alaska MEP, and for our friends out there that are wondering, what is the MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership? What they did is they found, and like, Damon, who knew that there's a person out there that specializes in tea equipment, right?
Yeah.
And Megan, my recollection is you were looking to spend a significant amount of money for that piece of equipment.
That was the standard that I had been told. Like,
that was what the information.
Everyone I talked to was like, this is $100,000. It's going to be $100,000. It's going to be $100,000. It's going to be $100,000. Every
magic number.
Yeah, that was the magic number. It's going to be $100,000. So I was like, all right, looking at financing options and like, how much down are we going to need? And how do we like do the magic moving of the things around to get the money? And instead, Eric, who did the research for us, wrote back and was like, this is the machine. It's $30,000.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. How much?
30,000.
So Damon, now, Megan, if I have this correct, wasn't it a gentleman from the New Jersey MEP?
Yeah, it was from New Jersey MEP. It was a guy that the New Jersey MEP knew. The guys from Jersey knew a guy. They knew and they knew they had a contact, and so that contact then and he does a lot of different kind of manufacturing equipment. He does this research, but specifically like loves tea, and was really kind of like, oh, we're gonna move back this way now. Like loves tea, and it was great to work with. Yeah. So.
And I'm sorry, I'm not a mathematician here. Did you get that one, Damon? Mathematician.
Yeah.
So Damon, what's 100,000 minus, like, what you paid? What, 30,000?
I paid, well, yeah. So obviously, like import duties and shipping, yada 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 yada. It ended up being about $35,000.
Yeah, but that's a lot better than $100,000.
Yes, and even we had been looking at like used ones that were in the state, and even the used ones were like $80,000.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so, which took us from being able to, for better, for worse, we paid for it out of pocket.
Yeah.
We can have that conversation another day. We were able to.
You saved about $65,000 by just partnering and connecting with the Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership.
Yeah, I asked for help from a professional. It's shocking what happens when you let someone do their job.
We just raise your hand and ask the question, like, hey, I need some help. And I love what you said, Megan. You're like, they knew a guy. They go to Jersey, and of course, everybody in Jersey knows a guy, and so they find this guy who knows exactly what you need. What a rewarding experience as a new, you're a seasoned entrepreneur, but new in a new entrepreneur venture to give you what a kickstart to help you that you're not choked on that $65,000, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like let's caveat this. I got what I paid for. So this machine comes with a little bit of a learning curve, and there's been some challenges and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it got me off the ground. And then this fall, I'm actually going to Japan to go look at the $100,000 machines.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to Japan anyway, but I'm going to be meeting with one of the companies that makes the nice ones.
Makes the $100,000 piece of machine.
Because the reality is that now we're getting to a level where we need a secondary machine. So the option is we either have to, because you got to have a backup with a piece of machinery.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It goes down when you get to a certain volume. Like you have to have a second one, because if it goes down, you're just like absolutely SOL. Right. And so we now have to make the decision of like, okay, do we buy the same machine so we don't have to learn it over again, but then deal with these eccentricities that come with getting the budget machine? Or do we, now that we know what we're doing and we have a better idea and we know what we're looking for, are we looking for a machine that has more automation, that has more consistency, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so, now, but we get to start, I get to do that research, a little bit on my own, hands-on things. And then potentially when it comes time, like I will potentially like reach back out and say, okay, now I actually have all the answers to the questions they asked me the first time. And I was like, I don't know.
I had no idea.
And can dig into the weeds of this and be like, okay, this is the budget. This is the longevity of the machine. This is, because I know so much more about it than I did because I have never worked in manufacturing, and food service and manufacturing are not the same thing, even close. And so it is, even though food manufacturing is like technically under the umbrella of manufacturing, it's a whole different monster. And so, it's been, for people who are listening, by the way, this piece of machinery that we're talking about, what it does is it takes loose leaf. So we blend loose leaf tea. So tea, Camellia sinensis, but also like herbals. We blend, put in this machine, and it puts it into, it makes these. It makes little, my sunshine is really killing me today.
All right. Sunshine's a good thing.
Tea sachets. So you open this guy up right here, and inside it is one perfect little sachet of tea. This nonsense right here. Because you have tag, string, fabric, materials, packaging, and then the machine that makes it all, and the humans that have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So like if you're in manufacturing, it's just like a massive amount of pieces and parts. This is just a lot goes into this little monster right here. And so that's what the machinery does, because I think it's good for people to have a visual of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All packed with love.
So much love. So much love in audiobooks.
Yeah.
Damon, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that is quite a machine to do that, because that while it may look simple at the outside, to do it repeatedly and thousands of times it's that's quite a machine to do that.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Like,
Hundreds of thousands. Right.
Yeah.
And so, okay. Hey, we've got a couple comments here. Hey, speaking of, we got Bentley drops a comment. Slaps you in the face like a fish. Weston wisdom.
Hold on. I was gonna take a picture of that and send it to my dad.
There you go.
There it is.
There.
Oh, Bentley. Hi. How are you?
So,
awesome.
And then Shub says, at Megan, what impact is expected on the local community and tea industry, and what challenges might arise? Any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, it's a good one. So one of the things I wanted to do when I created the company was, I really wanted to be able to track how much money was going back into the state, because I am primarily wholesale. I have a retail site. I do sell direct to consumer, but DTC has never been my focus. It's been B2B. And that is primarily because of the style of the product that I have, and also wanting to create economic growth in the state. Like that's always just been a thing that I love and I'm passionate about. And so being able to look at my numbers and know, from retail to wholesale, this is the amount of value that I'm adding back into the local economy, is really great. So, we started with, 100% markup for wholesale. We've realized since then that, Retailers are going to do whatever they want with prices, and I've let that go. Um, and at this point, though, is that, you know, we can see when customers are moving from a national brand. Maybe it's a small, nice national brand. Maybe it is just, you know, boxes of Bigelow. And I love to take that business. I love to take that business for multiple reasons. One, we're not shipping things into the state, right? This is made here, made in Alaska, and then it stays in the state. I love to see consumers being able to get a hold of a locally made product, just, you know, and then they can go to, you know, they tried it at a restaurant and then they're going to go to the little retail shop down the road and pick up a package of it to take it home. You know, that flow of the product being able to be seen and utilized in a lot of different settings creates it's satisfying as a business owner, obviously, right? But it is also really incredible to see consumers respond to that. They're like, oh, this is yummy. I like this. This is made well. This is a fresher ingredient, because that's going to happen when you are not buying off of a big grocery store box shelf. As a general rule in tea, there are exceptions to that. But as a general rule in tea, you're going to get a fresher ingredient when you are working with a retailer like me who is doing small batch more frequently. You're going to end up with a fresher product.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And then too, the fact that you are able to blend it, make it, I mean, your own, like you were talking at the beginning, you said there, you drank so much tea that people did not make well. And now you can experiment and really go into some of the uniqueness of Alaska and really bring that into the tea and how it tastes and your blends and everything. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's an amazing creative outlet, because entrepreneurs at their heart are typically very creative humans. They just have, they're, especially if you're like a serial entrepreneur, like you've discovered that that's your favorite creative outlet. And so that is really important, is to feed that creativity within entrepreneurship. And so being able to create new blends, create new products, create new experiences for the customer is a huge part of what drives me forward and keeps me moving when the day-to-day of bookkeeping and production and shipping challenges, etc., like drags you down. Is that continuous, you know? So like, you know, we spent Saturday morning, me and one of my business partners, just in my kitchen, just drinking ingredients. Like we just had a bunch of samples come in. And so we're just making things and we're pouring, and it looks like a science experiment in a lab, and it's great. You love it. It's like, it's so much fun. And that's what keeps you moving forward. If like the next thing, as you continue to see this piece that you already put into the world grow. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Go ahead, David.
What, you know, being in Alaska, sitting here listening, one of the things that I'm thinking about is, what is a unique Alaskan product or ingredient that you can tell us that goes into one of your teas? Just something that we would never think of.
Something you'd never think of. Oh, well, so one of my most popular blends is a chai. Everybody loves a chai, right?
Yeah.
So our Mariner's chai, we actually blend that one with kelp.
Nice.
So we put kelp into our chai, because chai, if you think about it, most people drink a chai. It's pretty heavily milked of some sort. And when you're baking, if you add a little salt to something, you know, you're going to get a better, richer, robust flavor if you're going to put a little salt in your baking, as opposed to no salt at all. And so it adds a richness to the blend that I think is important. And it was something for me. There's so many chais on the market. If I was going to enter the chai world, I wanted to have something uniquely Alaskan to say about it, and so I sat on that for a couple of years, was like, I am waiting to find the right thing. I want to be inspired in the right way. And I was playing with kelp for another blend that I ended up not going with, and just messing around with it. And, over the course of like weeks, just like trying different things. And then it just hit me and I was like, oh my gosh, how have I not thought about this before? Right. And so that is, and it's been a lot of fun to introduce people, because kelp's got a lot of growth, but it tends to sit in the seasoning world. And so, or as like a snack. And so it's been fun to use that in tea.
Excellent. So Megan, let's go here. So anybody joining us a little bit late, we're here with Megan Weston, founder, CEO extraordinaire of Felicity Loft Tea. And I'm going to pull up your website in a minute, but just love for you to dive in. You've really gone all in. Huge part of your success has been the B2B, business to business relationship. Can you say, I don't know if there's been one thing in particular, what has been a big contributor to your success with those wholesale relationships? What would you say there?
I created a packaging that they wanted to put on their shelves.
You created a packaging that they want to put on their shelves?
Yeah.
David, drop the mic there. Can you please elaborate?
Yeah. I mean, that's packaging, whether you like it or not, whatever the morality that you want to get into it is. Packaging makes a huge difference. And customers respond to things that are beautifully packaged every time. We buy stuff we know isn't that great, because it's beautifully packaged, because we want it to look pretty in the, the gift that we're giving, or sitting on our shelves. We just respond. And that was a big hole in the market. There was totally fine packaging within the tea world in Alaska. But there was nobody doing something that was different and extra. And my packaging, while being like, we've had like growth, right, over time. Like we started out in little craft bags with labels on them, and then have moved over time, to now we have like, these with like gold foil. And but that has been a driving force, is how is this going to look in people's stores? How are people going to feel about putting it on their shelves? I wanted a package that people wanted to put on their front counter because it made their business elevated. And that is, that's what I did.
That's quite forward thinking there. It really is. That's incredible forward thinking there.
Well, and it comes from being in that world. And that's the thing. It's like, I came out of what the sun is just gone full force now. Sorry, I didn't think of this through earlier. There is, I think that a lot of people think, they're like, oh, well, it's the same thing. The packaging just looks a little different. And it's just not true. Like there is packaging is its whole own monster. And I am lucky enough to get to work with a couple of different designers who had great vision and had experience, but coming out of, one of the restaurants that I owned was also kind of this like retail grocery store. And we could tell, like, you could have a gorgeous product that was just beautiful on the inside, but when you package it in a way that isn't appealing to your customers, they don't pick it up over and over again. And we needed something that people wanted to grab for themselves, but also for a gift, to give to a friend, to feel this. And so this packaging you're looking at right now is on the website, is, one of the big culminations of this machinery, and then working with, we worked with a company in Anchorage, for anybody who's local, JKD, to get these boxes made. And they did an incredible job. And then, so this is, it's a big part of it, is just being able to appeal to the customer without the business having to do more work. Let your product sell itself.
Drop the mic, Damon. So you use the word I think marinate. I think you used earlier, being the foodie that you are, and so I think we just need to kind of let this marinate. And one of the things that I love, just blown away. This is a true masterclass. So now, Megan, as you can tell, I don't know if you noticed, if you're like admiring my background a little bit, like I'm not the best branding guy on the planet, and so
you're sitting in front of, I got shelves back here just filled with like stuff.
It looks so much better. But what I really love and admire, and I didn't expect this answer, and so I feel compelled. I just can't tell you how much I use the word again, admire, how you've gone all in on that branding. Did you have branding in your background? Was it just purely from your walk of life in the food business? Like, what made you to come in with such a fierce commitment to the branding and the packaging?
I mean, I like pretty things, so like that's a good start. And I hired a professional when I launched the brand. I hired someone who I liked their work, I liked what they were doing, I liked who they were, to create a logo for me, logo design, all of colors, all of that, and then we kind of started with a template again, because I started in craft bags with just a label on them. And then over time I've worked with, so my other business partner, Kelsey, is actually now my packaging designer, that's something she has a gift for. And so I gave her, these pieces and parts. I'm like, okay, we created this logo. We had created these fonts. We created this vibe. And then she knows me and she knows the business and she's really run with it. But packaging that is like both clean. I wanted it to be colorful. I wanted all the colors to be something you'd find in nature, but still wanted it to feel joyful. The mountain on the top there is, so that's Iliamna. That's a mountain that you can see from where we live, and her 3 sisters, and I have 3 sisters. And so it really all, it's been something that there is a lot of beautiful packaging out there, and there's a lot of ways to do beautiful packaging. And now the resources are easier than ever, to get just gorgeous packaging done at like pretty reasonable prices. And so for me, it was just about finding the right resources and learning, it's a language of its own. And I never hired like a true product designer, which you can do, and get, phenomenal results. But mine was a combination of, hiring somebody to do their job well, and then also surrounding myself with people who have a similar mindset as me to wanting to create something that was like both clean and beautiful and unique. But you can see this packaging is, while lovely, is not, it's not overly extraordinarily. It's pretty simplistic when you really look at it, what's on there and the information included. But it's that, okay, are we giving the customer enough information to want to pick this up? And then are we also giving them enough space in the packaging to see what they need to be seeing? And it's just, I think it's a combination of like loving it, understanding it, being a consumer, being a person who likes to buy things, and also being someone who wanted, having that mindset of like, we want it to be Alaskan, but we don't want it to be spruce and moose, was a big piece of that.
I like that.
Spruce and moose.
Well, you know what I mean? Like you saw the like lodge room in your head, you just know, like,
yeah. Very, very classy, very, is elegant the right word? I don't know, Damon.
I'll take it.
I think just absolutely brilliant. Love what you're sharing here. I know I'm like, I could keep you here all day. I know I'm keeping you longer than I.
No, you're good.
So let's go here, Megan. Growth. For you're experiencing, and what a blessing, right? I mean, because like there's entrepreneurship is, Damon, we were just at a group the other day, it's the roller coaster, right? You have your ups, you have your downs, and when you're on the upswing, man, you've got to capture those moments because you don't know how long it's going to last. Therefore, typically comes with growing pains. Do you have any advice, suggestions as far as like what's been helping you navigate through growing pains?
Yeah. I mean, having people that you can reach out to and have a conversation with You know, like I've called Alyssa a couple of times in the last 6 months and been like, I need to word vomit the things. And because sometimes in the process of just talking about it, you find your solutions depending on how you process as a human. For some people, it's writing it down. For me, I'm a verbal processor. So being able to talk about it in a space where you can be very real and you don't have to worry about hurting the other person's feelings by like saying all of the truths is a really big piece of it. I think that allows you to, for me, it allows me to put all the puzzle pieces on the board, and then a lot of times they click back into place. You know, I think a thing that we are still working on is putting systems in place. If you can put a system in place, now don't not grow because you don't have the systems yet. Like that is a thing certain subset of people will like not ever put the systems in place. And then other people will just be like, well, the system isn't perfect yet, so we can't do the thing. And neither one of those is the right answer. And the systems are going to change constantly. And by systems, I mean like whether it is like your billing processes, the way that you reach out to your customers, the way that you, do your ordering. Like as you grow, these things are going to morph over time, and they shouldn't stay identical, because as your business scales, the scale of things needs to change and the delegation of tasks is going to change. And so that is, where we're at right now is everything is in my brain. And I have to get it out of my brain, and someone else has to be able to reference this information somewhere. That's the stage of growth we're in. And that is, it's tough, it's hard, but it's also like part of the process. And I think reminding yourself, like, just because you have to change doesn't mean you were doing it wrong before. And I mean, that's a big thing. I have to remind myself that all the time.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal comment right there.
Yes, it really is. Because it does. I mean, you do it with what you got and your best judgment at that point, but you can't foresee everything. You can't build a system that's made for your company 5 years down the road in year one. You just aren't going to be able to do that. You don't even know what's going to hit you then. And such a great point, because, and back to your points, you can't wait for it to be perfect. You need to start and then work it out on the way.
Yeah.
And we've got one last question here from the crowd. We've got, are there plans for future expansion?
I mean, always. Ones we're talking about yet?
We'll have you back on. And
we'll
have you back on, and we're
ready to talk about it.
We're in transition right now, with the transition out of the restaurants. Specifically, we just sold one. And that partner from that restaurant is now coming into the tea business. Nice. So we're kind of in that transition right now. The big one for us next year is, finding a production manager, finding somebody who we can teach this equipment and the processes to allow me to be just the CEO, not the ordering manager and the salesperson and the, every single role. And it's deciding what are the roles that I need to fulfill. Where do I keep hands in the pie so that I know as growth happens that we're keeping consistency of product, of quality, of that. But then also, like, what are the touch points that bring me joy? Like, what are the things that are going to keep me thriving as an entrepreneur? And continuing to, even if they don't always make the perfect amount of sense, like keeping those pieces as a part of my daily role so that I feel fulfilled and feel joyful about this business I've created. And honestly, like, I think, we have an opportunity right now that we're just mulling around and trying to decide what we're going to do with. A big one for us is going to be location. What are we going to do about our space long term, which is, with any manufacturing, is almost always going to be one of the challenges.
Yeah, it is one of the challenges all the time. All the time, especially with growth. You're going to be on, where are we going to go? How are we going to do this?
Right. All right, Megan.
Awesome.
We'll start winding down. I told you, so we're keeping you, but you are the wisdom, the energy, the enthusiasm, just completely contagious. We love all of it. Last question for you, and maybe you've already answered this if you haven't already. as you started your entrepreneurial journey, or maybe what's helped you become successful at such a fast early stage, what is the best business advice that you feel that you've ever received, or best business advice that you would love to pass along to a young entrepreneur or just a new entrepreneur? Best business advice. What do you have to say there?
I would say don't wait. Don't wait. It doesn't need to be perfect to get it out the door. Just don't wait.
Don't wait. Just kind of a just do it, right? So don't
just
wait.
Do it.
I'm with you.
You know what? Let's get t-shirts made up for Megan, right? Just don't wait. Don't wait. Just go rip off the Band-Aid. Just go do it.
Dive in. But like also I would say the next piece of that is surround yourself with people who have different skill sets than you.
Yeah.
And that is always the next thing. Like surround yourself with people who know things about the things that you don't know about, and that are good at them.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Never be the smartest person in the room. Damon, takeaways from our conversation today with the one and only Megan.
Yeah, it's so cool to learn more about you, what you're doing with Felicity Loft Tea, and how things are going, because we've heard the stories about the production equipment before, but it's great to see it's in action. It's doing what you do. And in fact, you're actually looking at more equipment to see what's going on, and just so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Megan, we're gonna wrap up. Any last words, parting thoughts that you want to share with folks so they can find you on your website? We've got you in the show notes here. We're going to be posting you all over the place. Best way for folks to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is kind of my hub for social media. If somebody has social media, I don't really look at anything else. Who has time? But other than that, you can always send me an email too. Reach out on the site. Yeah, I think that's, we've got a fall festival we got Harvest Moon Festival, local Kenai foods here in Soldana, Northwest Tea in Seattle. The weekend after that, the end of October, we'll be at Heartland Tea and Chocolate Festival in Kansas City. So yeah, we'll be around. Come say hi. I'll make you a cup of tea.
Wow, absolutely love it. So Megan, first off, we want to give a huge thank you. We commend you. We compliment you. We praise you. We admire you. And Damon, how about a big round of applause for just Megan absolutely crushing it today. What an inspiration she is. And as we wind down, we just want to share with everybody, go out and just be someone's inspiration, just like our dear friend Megan is. Yeah. Keep crushing it. Check out Felicity Loft for your friends, your family, birthdays, holidays, Christmas is right around the corner.
It's cozy season.
It's totally tea season, man. So there's no better tea on the planet. So check out Megan. And Megan, we just wish you continued success. Hang out with us for 1 second. And Damon, we have a great guest coming up this Friday, man. So we'll be right back here Friday. Guys, have a great rest of your week, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, guys.